Hey there, everyone. How you doing? I'm Shane Snipes, and this is the Entrepreneurship Show here at BMCC. And what we really are excited to have today is a conversation around marketing and how do you create a personal brand. With a very special guest who works with this all the time. It is his actual full-time gig to spend time developing personal brands, working with personal brands. He's got a book coming out. We'll talk about that relates to this. Ramon Ray is amazing. He's got so many things going on in the world, and I just wanted to give him a big props for all the ways that he's brought his expertise to all the people around the planet. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much, and I'm excited to be here back at BMCC to help the students and maybe faculty. So thanks for having me and seeing value that I have something in this noggin to share with students and others. Thanks.
Very, very cool. And just to give you a little background on Ramon, he actually has tons of experience in various different places. He's worked in a lot of different corporations, helping them with personal branding on certain sides, but he's also worked in nonprofits like the United Nations. And these different experiences have really taught him what it means in this day and age, with the combination of the gig economy and the combination of what's happening online and what's going on with this website and how do I manage my social media in terms of creating a presence and creating a brand. He's done all of those sorts of things. He himself has started 4 companies and he sold one of them. So we'll talk about some of those exit strategies. We'll also talk about his background and who he is as a person and what his journey was like and how he entered this beautiful space of entrepreneurship here. It's always interesting to hear people's journeys toward entrepreneurship, how early they started, how late they started. There is no right answer, and that's what we're uncovering today with Ramon. So, Ramon, I wanted to start out with a really great question. My students always ask me the same question, and so I'm going to start out with this one, and that is, what got you started on this path of entrepreneurship?
That's a great question. I ask myself that all the time. Let me ask myself one more time. Okay, I got an answer. It was accidental. I wish I could say it was like your quote unquote typical, hey, I was in the garage with my 2 friends and we developed, how can we save the world with this app? And we created a quarter company and we had a valuation of 10 billion. No, that's not how I started. And I think that's what very few people start that way. But in a nutshell, I had to not go back too far, unless you want me to, but I was a technology consultant. So I started a technology consulting firm. Why did I do that? I kind of was a gearhead, tech. I knew how to do wires and a little bit of Microsoft Access. Anybody knows that software back in the day, taking code and making applications with it. So that was the skill set I had. I wanted to make a little more money for my family. And I just loved doing stuff. And I recall one day a friend of mine was like, Ramon, can you help me with this problem? And I'll pay you for it. And I think that kind of birthed to a degree in me the spark of entrepreneurialism. And from there, kind of the rest is history. From there, a consulting company, which I dissolved, to an event company that I sold, to 2 companies that I'm running right now. And I think this thirst of, I'm getting bored, it's time to create something new, was birthed. So that's probably why I started it. And some days, I must say, I wish I had a 9-to-5, a full-time job. And by the way, those listening, nothing wrong with it. Half or more of America has a great job in a company. You're in a great company. So I'm not saying in a negative way, but for the other half of us, we just have this itch to kind of launch on our own. So that's kind of why I started and how it happened.
Yeah, and similar journeys. My students have heard all kinds of different things as far as my journey goes. And something that we have in common is when I first was working for a firm, they hired me as a contractor, right? Mm-hmm. And so that immediately opened up this whole thing of wait, I'm not working for them full time anymore. So that means I can go find another client, or I can go and do this, or I can go and do that. And that's another aspect of entrepreneurism that I think we share, which is a way that you have to think about a skill set that we develop, right? And what is that skill set that other people want? And are you at a place where you can deliver that skill set at a reliable level that will keep your business growing and want more and more clients coming to you? So that's exactly how it is, right?
And I think
is that a similar path for you?
Absolutely. And Seth Godin, he says that Seth Godin, those who don't know, is a marketer and sold a few books. In fact, I like him so much. I have one of his books here. But Seth Godin says, are you a freelancer or an entrepreneur? And I think some people get the two confusing, but they're similar. Freelancer may work for themselves and trade their time for dollars, and you build a great company for your family. An entrepreneur, often we want to build something greater than ourselves. Both are great, but I think, listen, both are independent, and you're charting your own destiny for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're not mutually exclusive either. Because you can be a self-employed person who's kind of like the solo guy doing marketing, consulting, and then you can be that thing that you create all of a sudden takes on a life of its own, and then you're just riding that horse forward, right? You're just going with the steam of where the market and the business is.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's the other side of it. That's beautiful. Tell me a little bit about, when you first got that inclination of your entrepreneurial self. And did it show up before this instance that you talked about before?
It's hard to know, an exact path. I can remember one time my wife reminded me walking down Utica Avenue. Those in Brooklyn will know the area, walking down Utica Avenue and passing out flyers to the businesses. The Utica Avenue Business Directory. Shane, nobody bought it. I didn't get a dime. I walked in the hot sun for hours. But I think I always wanted to do something, whether it's really making a buck or just the thrill of, I don't know, I made this, can I sell it to somebody? Just the game, the thrill. So I think that's kind of where it started. But I think when I was working with this company, that's where the thirst was birthed of, let me create. And I think, as you kind of hinted, we all have skills. If I was in finance or numbers, maybe I would have started an accounting firm or been an accountant. But mine, I don't know, it's happened to have a knack for marketing and branding. And from there, I think that's really when it launched, to create other things. And then people see value. So for me, I think it was that first one of knowing, wow, this is pretty cool. Somebody paid me money to do this. I wonder if I could do this again.
Yeah. Let's talk about the various different paths of entrepreneurship and the way companies tend to, sometimes they're formed and you realize this is a viable product or service that's going to get larger. And then other times you realize, okay, I've done this for a while. I did enjoy it. I don't necessarily enjoy it now, so I'm going to dissolve it. And so those are different choices, right? And I want, if you wouldn't mind, talk a little bit about creating an organization at the very beginning and some of the fears that you found yourself wrapped up in, and how you got over those fears.
Absolutely. And let me know if this answers the question, but I'll just share a bit. I know I worked at the United Nations, Shane, for over 10 years, long time. And until I say I was fired and resigned, so my contract wasn't renewed and I was out of a job, bottom line. There was a lot of fear because while I was at the UN, I was kind of a fake business owner. It wasn't fake, really. Nobody could ding you for having a side hustle, right? But when I say fake, I say it tongue in cheek, meaning I had that steady check coming in. So even my side ventures, whether they worked or not, but when I was all on my own, I had to make it work. So I think some fears people have is just, will I get paid? I was talking to a young entrepreneur just now related to me, and will the client pay me? You get your first gig, the client says maybe yes. What about rejection? Some people find it very hard to be told no. I'm making these brand new pens. Buy it. Nah, it's not for us. It's not personal. Maybe you didn't market it well. Maybe they didn't like black pens. Maybe they wanted blue pens. Maybe they don't know how to write and you targeted the wrong person. So the fears we have, I would maybe have a thicker skin. All the time it's not, and rarely is it personal. So I think as you're starting out, those are some of the fears. Can I do it? Will even people want to buy from me? How do I get to the next week? And so these are, listen, having fears in business is common. And I think if you don't have fear, probably there's something wrong. It's like bungee jumping or going into a dark room and you're like, no, it's okay. Probably have something loose up there in a few ways.
Yes. Yeah. And or you're old enough that you've gotten so many fears,
Yep.
Scared out of you, so to speak.
That's true too.
Yeah. People ask me, am I still afraid of public speaking? And I say no. And they go, really? Because it's terrifying for people who are just doing it for the first time. But if you've talked to, I don't know, 10,000 groups of people, I don't know how many groups, there's so many through the years, it's just really hard to know. And you realize all the mistakes that I made in those 10,000, I kind of like plugged in all the holes, so to speak. So some of my fears are from that. And I think that's an important thing too.
And or you don't take yourself too seriously, meaning as a fellow speaker, fear or not, but it's like my fly's open on stage or my hair's not perfectly done, no pun intended, or whatever. It's like, it is what it is. I mean, yeah, if we're interviewing the president or we're on CNN or some major thing, maybe you get a little butterflies, but
yeah,
it is what it is. So to your point, you're right. And I think that goes back to, you should have fears as you're starting out in business, starting out your first venture. But afterwards, system is kicking in. You've got a steady stream of customers. I would say, if anything, maybe your fears are replaced to something else. Maybe you're afraid, can you execute for the client? And you're no longer afraid about the business. But I love how you said it. After you do it a few times, who's the guy who said 10,000, Malcolm Gladwell, or his book, the famous book on something?
10,000 hours or something like that. Yes. I think it took me a lot more than that. I think I'm a slow learner when it came to speaking. I say. So one of the things I wanted to follow up with you too is, your specialty is marketing and branding. And I talk to students all the time about, okay, so you have an idea. Right now, though, what do you have that you could possibly brand, or how do you go about creating? We'll get more specific, particularly here. How do you go about creating a brand while you're still in college and there's nothing to sell?
I love it. And I don't know whether that's tongue in cheek on your part, but I'm going to fire back and say you're selling yourself. So that is the asset you have. You're always, as you walk in the room, seeing your professors, opening the door, eating, people are watching you. So here's what I would say, and I say it thinking fondly of some students in my mind that have made, I think the English word is indelible, which means strong impression. Is that right? Is that the English word? Indelible? I hope. Okay. That makes an indelible impression on you. Is that I think, one, how do you present yourself? Just that simple thing. Out of 100 students around you, I'm sure you remember the students who shook your hand firmly, said, good morning, welcome to BMCC, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one, just that clarity of speaking. I think two, how do you put yourself together? People say you're going to take a tour of Merrill Lynch, or you're going to take a tour of a bank or the lower Manhattan Wall Street. If you want to wear a hoodie and sweats and all that, that's up to you. It's a free country. But I remember those who maybe put on a tie, maybe didn't. You follow what I mean, dressed up a little spiffy. Three, do you have business cards? A lot of students may not, but I remember those who said, my name is Marcy. I'm from BMCC. Here's my card. Wow. So all of that in this day and age where people are analyzing, people want a reason to fire, that makes a difference. And you'll find, don't forget the connections you're making. Students watching this now are connected to me. Feel free to email me and say hello. You have your professors and teachers, the BMCC community. So my point is, that is an asset. You're right. Maybe you didn't make the water bottle in $1 million company today, but as you're starting out, when that professor's thinking, I only have 2 slots and there's 10 students, which 2 am I going to hire? The one with the personal brand, the one who communicated well, gave the business card, had a little as best appearance as they could, things of that nature. I think that makes a difference. Asking questions in class or other places. I remember, and I'm sure you may have a similar experience. I speak all over the world to students. All students are great, but I remember the ones who stand up and challenge me, or who say, hey, Mr. Ray or Ramon, I have a question on this. I appreciate it. So is that helpful?
Very, very. Anytime that I can hear, professional people talk about the importance of pulling themselves together and presenting something, right? Taking a stance and presenting something. That doesn't mean being confrontational, right? That doesn't mean being adversarial and like mean or anything like that. It just means, okay, let me present who I would want to be at this company. Or if I want to go to work for a startup and we're going to a co-work space and we're seeing 5 startups tomorrow, why don't I dress like, business casual? Too stuffy, startups get a little weird about it. I tell my students that. I said, you dress too stuffy, the startup's going to be like, you may not be a cultural fit for us.
Exactly, that's true.
If you dress too laid back, then people know, okay, they're not going to take their work responsibility serious either. So there is that really cool balance that I'm trying to teach students here, especially with the gig economy.
And I like the balance. I think if you're, as a student, to your point, I love that nuance. As a student, I like to tell people, and even myself, that people may, and it may not always be fair, but they already think negative of you or neutral at the very least. Your hope is that they think neutral, meaning that they don't know you. But many people may think negative of you. So just even before you open your mouth, how you present yourself, as you said, it makes a difference. Just a smile. Good morning. My name is Marcia or Donovan or Bob. That can give you the slight edge, meaning from moving from the negative to neutral. I remember, who was that guy? He had the smile, he had the book he gave. Makes a difference.
Yeah. I wish there was a way to like communicate to the students how we're all still humans, right? Like people tend to look at each other and say like, well, you're the vice president of so-and-so, or you're the director of this, or you're the director of that. For me, the moment I said, okay, you're a human being and you just want to laugh and you just want to smile and you just want to have a good time in your life, and or you just want to get your job done and get it done in a fast, efficient way. But in either case, there's still human beings underneath that are looking for that kind of connection with other people. And there's a couple ways that they get to do that. I'd love for you to talk about some great examples that you've seen of people who've kind of taken their personal brands to the best level possible.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, of course, there's very famous people that I'm going to try not to mention because it's not fair to students. You know, very few of us today, you probably are, but are billion-dollar brands. But very few of us.
Like, where is that money at? I'm looking around for that. I'm looking around for that $1 billion.
You're in the wrong place. Your left shoulder. But let's talk about kind of as best I can regular people. But the famous people are easier to identify. But I think of my friend Joe Applebaum. This is a guy who built one company, maybe two companies, I think one, and he's just crushing it on LinkedIn. He's like diving headfirst into all things LinkedIn. That's one. I think about people who, I think about my friend who has an amazing marketing company in New York, and he wears only orange shoes and orange ties. Now, that's a dress thing. He happens to be legit when he speaks, but how he builds his brand is just by his dress and how he looks. I think of myself producing an inordinate amount of content. Now, I'm not a student, in fairness, but as you graduate and you're not being a student anymore in your business, content, what we're doing today, isn't this part of maybe not personal branding to a degree, but it's part of the brand of the school and this program and etc. So video, wow, everybody can do that because everybody watching, all of you students, have a phone. So you can do, instead of just playing video games or doing some silly stuff, you can do some serious content once a week or something like that. So I think when I think of people who are doing great branding, I think of Seth Godin. Listen, he's just been consistent, and this is not my book. I'm not selling anything here. This is his book. But he's been consistent in producing great content. And over the years, he's known as one of the leading marketers for all things marketing.
Yeah. That's a great point. A really good point. And so many of the people that we talk about when it comes to successful small companies, and I tend to mention the things that the students see a lot. So I'll talk to them and I'll say, did you notice that ad in the subway with a special type of branding around sheets, and all they sell is bedding, right, and linens? And they say that's all they're doing. So they've really narrowed down their message. They narrowed down their product.
They have Bull
down.
Yes, they have Bull in their name. I don't know if you want to mention the name. Is it the branding works? Because I know the company name. Bull.
I know the company name too, but I'm not giving them any advertising. I'll give them advertising when they sponsor my show, but I'm not going to do it.
But the point is that B&B company, we know the name. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and there's that, and then there's also those other sort of current brands, like the ones that the boutique, I call them boutique products, right? So the boutique toothbrush that's also sold on the subway, right? All they sell is toothbrushes, and then you subscribe to get your toothbrush head. So that gives them ongoing income. And all these are great examples of very specific content. And if you go to their blog, they talk about how to keep your teeth clean and what the most effective way of mouth health is. And they build everything around this very specific thing. So personal branding for me comes from, for many years before I started teaching entrepreneurship, I was very focused on sustainability. So if you had talked to me or seen me a few years ago, you'd have been like, my God, this guy has everything related to ecological issues and sustainability and all those components. And I still love that stuff, but I'm also now really excited about finishing my doctorate. I'm almost done.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
I know. It's crazy in entrepreneurship. So it's something that we spend time on, right? That we love, that we're passionate about. What are some tips and tricks for our students when it comes to really talking about a personal brand first step or second step?
Sure. Yeah, a few things I say. And again, having done this for many, many years, my own book is coming out at the end or beginning of February, I think it is, Celebrity CEO. So I hope I'll try to send some copies to the students to read through. But I think a few things. I think one is a consistency of message and consistency, period, being out there. In 2018, 2019, we have social media and video we can use. That's one. Two, I like to think, write a book. I've written 3 books and one's coming out. A book gives you credibility. And for students, it could be a white paper, a PDF, a download. Download Jason's guide to eating in the cafeteria. I'm making it up. But some sort of a tactical hard copy content. 3, events are a great way to build brand. Just bringing people together in a consistent manner makes you the top dog in what you're doing. So I have a Facebook Live I do every Sunday evening at 8 p.m. And I have a live event that I do in New York City once a year. I just finished it. It'll be in December 2019. So I think between events, between books, between regular content, media attention is another thing. Here I'm being interviewed today. Hopefully you'll be interviewed by me at some point on the show I do. So I think media attention, getting your name out there adds credibility. Me saying I'm cool or I'm good is one thing, but somebody else saying it, ABC, NBC, Fox, CNN, them saying it adds a bit of credibility. So I could go on, but those are a few things for business people in particular that I say building credibility. And since I have it in front of me, have a good business card. It doesn't have to. This is the one that just has my picture on it, but the back I have my contact information. But having good business cards, all those things combined together can help build and strengthen one's personal brand.
Yeah, definitely. When you're thinking about someone taking their idea that they may have created in a class and just trying to get the initial branding right. This is just a start down this huge rabbit hole, right? But just to give people a direction when it comes to really talking about this new brand new idea, this brand new thing that no one's ever heard of before. How do you really encapsulate that side of your entrepreneurial spark?
Sure.
And let it be marketable or visible to others?
Absolutely. I think the most important thing that I found is to be very clear on who are you trying to reach. You're in class, you've just written the maybe concept paper, if I'm on the right wavelength as you, concept paper for your idea. How do I start this? How do I start building a brand? Now, marketing and paying dollars can work if you're going that route. Some companies do that and they do that. But what I'd say is who are you trying to reach and what action do you want them to take? Don't, out of 100 students in the room, and you have a new idea for a better water bottle, don't try to say it's for everybody who drinks water. It's not. It's for everybody who has water bottles. It's not. Out of the 100 students in the room, focus on the 10 students that your product is maybe, whatever, designed for. That is the way I think to start with personal branding, because those are what we call the early adopters. If you get those 10 people interested, poking, prodding, asking questions, now what's going to happen? Those 10 people are going to tell, in this simple example, 2 other people. Whatever number that math is, those are now more people who know. So I think the best thing I would tell students, don't try to save the entire school, the entire world, your entire community. Start with those who you can impact today and those who are closest to the problem you're trying to solve. Serve their needs and then take it from there. Because if you start too broad and too big, it's just going to be too much for you to eat. How do you eat an elephant? Ha ha ha. One bite at a time.
Yeah, sure. That's so true. That question came from a student, and I know they had a particular question. They were like, "Oh, you're talking to this person that I've been following on the internet, and I really wanted to ask them this question." So I got that question in for them. Props up, and hopefully it helps some other people too.
Awesome.
To take us back to sort of the personal branding side, what do you think your personal brand was when you were in college?
Wow, that's a tough question. I did run for student government and I won. I was business manager or something. Probably my personal brand, if I had to guess, was great at selling. Because, and now speaking in the context, maybe not as a college student per se, just doing student stuff, but I was in student council. And so I got to interface with the dean. I got to interface with the community. And I think that's kind of in the 1 or 2 years that I was doing that, I think that's kind of how my brand got to be known. I was kind of the guy who was the business face, the guy who was always selling something, getting the dean to change her mind, calling the students together to get one more soda machine in the lounge. That's kind of how I was known. Ramon can get it done. You know, we'll deal with the finances. We'll deal with this. Ramon's the guy who we want to speak on this. Or Ramon's the guy we want to put a business plan in college, a business plan about college stuff together. So I think that was probably how I was known, the guy who could sell and convince people of something.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I love that.
Who cares what others say?
That's really great. Sometimes you don't know what your brand is until you reflect on it, right? Because sometimes you go, okay, what are my actions that I'm taking in this moment? And how can I start to think about those things as, is this who I want to be known as?
Yes.
Do I want to be known as the expert gamer, for example? Like, well, you might want to, right? If your whole brand, if your blog that you're creating is around gaming and everything else is around gaming, then yeah, just run with that and make that part of who you are. I try to get my students to think about their interest as opportunities to develop content, because then they're motivated to create the content because it's an interest of theirs.
Absolutely.
And then that's a way for them to start to develop a brand voice of, oh, wow. And you know, when you talk about brand voice, it's like, okay, this is a thing that's constantly speaking, and this is what the voice sounds like, and this is how often it comes out, and this is what it's going on. So it echoes back to all the things that you're talking about with creating consistent content over time.
And I love what you said about brand voice, because you think about, BMW, what do they say? The ultimate driving machine. You think about Starbucks. By the time you say you don't even like your coffee, the properly trained barista, take it back and throw it away. They have other things, but customer service. You think about all these brands. What a Ritz-Carlton, it's in business books all over the place. So to your point, brand voice, consistency, it's important. It's important. And sometimes you may try to make that brand voice, but if you listen to your customers as well, the 10 people I talked about, they may help you craft it and say, we thought our brand voice was red. Our customers are telling us they like blue. So
yeah. Another student question was, how about the big old failures? You don't have to talk about your own, but you can talk about others and give other examples, or talk generally about what are some of the big failures that come out of marketing mishap.
Absolutely. I can talk about my own. I mean, one glaring one that comes to mind, I have a lot of small failures. I can think last week, today, but I do events. It's one of the things I do. I produce events and I work at large brands to host it and sponsor it, et cetera. So I figured I could expand to the West Coast, right? Because I've done events in New York City. How hard could it be to do an event in California? You get the hotel and get some cheap food and you're good to go. I had an event. A few people did come, but no one came. Sponsors weren't happy. I spent at least $50K, which again, to some is not a lot, but I'm glad for me, it's a lot of money. So I lost it meaning it happened, but it wasn't as great as it could have been. And so that's one marketing mistake, just thinking that since I've done this way here, I can do the same this way there. But it wasn't the case. So that's one big example. And I think smaller ones are, and hopefully I don't repeat them, is advertising to the wrong audience. It's so easy now to hit boost post, sponsor this, pay this money there. But I would tell the students, you have your idea, making whatever inventions you're creating as student entrepreneurs. Be careful before you spend money. It's good if you can spend the least amount of money to test it first. Then you can kind of know you're on the right track. And listen, be careful of friends and family. My final test is go to a stranger. Go in the corner of your college. I just made this. Do you want to buy it? If people start buying it, yes. But after you're out there in the rain for a week and no one's buying it, you could be at the wrong corner, sure. But you may want to consider, you know what? We thought people may want this and they're not buying it. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, that's so true. That is so true. When you're just to wrap things up, when you're talking about future goals and future ways of designing brands, talk just briefly about What do you think things like brand trajectory mean? Or like, what is the brand direction? What direction is the brand going? How would you give some great examples of what that looks like, and maybe even describe what's going on with your current brand?
Sure. Talking about another brand as an example I can think of, again, I could be off. I'd like your input on this, but I can think of Uber. The public brand perception, I think a year or two ago, was kind of like, and some people may still not like it, but speaking very broad here. But I think due to the advertising, the new CEO, they're trying to say, we're here, a transportation company. We want to help you. End of story. It's a softer. So that's just my quick knee-jerk reaction. It was going that way, or it could have been not so good, but they're trying to resurrect that. I think for myself, I've really struggled with this, identifying who am I, what is my company, because I have a team of people that I work with that work for me, and what are we doing? But I'm really narrowing it down to two broad things that our brand represents. Well, first, our mission statement is we always will be truthful, and we must have fun. That's for sure. Those are our two mission statements, brand statements. Getting them mixed up. But the two things I think of is, one is we provide the best way for large brands to reach small businesses. And the second thing is wrapped around Ramon. If you're looking for high engagement, high entertainment, I'm here to help. And I say that because in the speaking industry, as you know, there's a lot of speakers, a lot of great speakers, but I'm not the guy for seriousness. I'm not the guy for a long seminar. I'm not the guy for a 3-day workshop. Fast, quick, fun, to the point. So that's where I'm taking my brand, looking for companies that want that, if that helps answer the question. And I hope it does, because that goes back to the students that you're advising. What's your strength or what's your weakness?
Yeah, that's spot on. That's precisely what I was thinking about as far as examples for what gives people a presence. Mm-hmm. Mine has become, like I was talking about, my trajectory before was sustainability and everything related to sustainability in small communities and what it really meant for them. And then it became when I transitioned after selling my company, and as I transitioned to another cycle, another chapter in my life, so to speak, I realized something that meant a lot to me was mindfulness and entrepreneurship, because both of which have been in my life since like 1990. Well, entrepreneurship since I was born. My parents were entrepreneurs, but nice. Before that, or as soon as I became aware of it. So I think it's so important that we consider not just our place in this space and our place that we are right now, but more importantly, what direction are we going? How have I pointed my boat? Mindfulness, entrepreneurship. Okay, got it. That's something that's really focused, really specific, and it gives people something to think about. They don't have to agree with it or disagree with it, right? Absolutely. And just like you were saying, you're looking and focusing in on those strengths that you have. And also, we're both very savvy entrepreneurs, so you're always going, okay, where's the hole in the market?
Yes.
There's a big gap between mindfulness and entrepreneurship. There's a huge gap. Both are research and validated. Entrepreneurship education works, mindfulness works, but no one said, oh, these two should go together. So that's a real opportunity. And I want my students to think about the opportunities like that. I want them to think about their markets like that.
Yeah, no, that's so important. That's essential. And I think that I like the thing you said, that, where are the holes in the market? How can I fill it? As opposed to saying, whatever the reverse of that is, some people, I have a solution, and you're looking for the problem. That could work, but I think the more successful ones, at least those who don't have a lot of time and money, which is me, I prefer to find the problem. I can make that better. So absolutely do what you said. I can't wait to attend one of your classes and soak up some of the knowledge, and maybe just sit there for a day and join you and listen to your professorship. So
it's going to be fun. We'll both get to see each other soon, I hope, one of the events that we're having here at BMCC, and other ways that we see each other around in the community in New York City. The beautiful thing about New York is it's one of the largest entrepreneurship ecosystems on the planet. So our students and the people that come to New York and are involved in the program have access to all of this stuff. It's amazing.
Absolutely.
And to close things out with you, I'd love for you to talk about, how do people effectively do that here in New York? What do you think the best way is for them to sort of plug into this entrepreneurial outlet that's here in New York City with so much electricity out there in that space?
Absolutely. Great question. Listen, I would tell people in general, your students, I think one, Eventbrite is a great tool that catalogs and has a ton of events happening in the New York area. Meetup, Go to a meetup group and just sit with like-minded people, get some stale pizza, some non-fizzled Coca-Cola, and some old crackers, I'm teasing, whatever they have at these meetups, and attend it. That's some of the best ways I can see to get involved. Remember that, of course, on Facebook, online, there's all kind of groups, LinkedIn, that you can find. But I think those of you who are part of the BMCC community, this is one of the best starting points you can find because you're dealing with people who care and the community. So I think between the community you're already in, Eventbrite, meetup groups, go out and start, and then connections start to be exponential. You meet Ramon, Ramon connects you to him, he connects you to her, and the life goes around, and 2, 3, 4, 5 years later, you're doing whatever you want your mission in life to be.
That's so true. And what great words to end on, actually. That was a fantastic ending to the show. I hope you guys enjoyed it today. Please give a big shout out to Ramon Ray and let him know the job he's done, providing feedback and comments inside of YouTube. I'm always watching it. Sometimes our guests aren't, but I usually forward them over to our guests and remind them to go back and pick up on the conversation. So we do really love when people add comments into it. Of course, email is a great way to do it too. You can always find him. His links and things will be in the description below. So you'll be able to find contact information for him there. Look out for his book that's coming out soon. And if you're watching this a couple of years from now, you may have already seen it on the shelves. All right. Thanks, everyone, and have an amazing day.